Hold the frame right here. What we are watching is a woman collapsing in a room full of people who are used to buying their way out of consequences. The camera glides across an ice-cold, ultra-exclusive Manhattan dining room, where 47 elites sit frozen in place. At the center of the wide shot, a barefoot woman lies bleeding from the neck, crumpled at the polished shoes of Vincent Moretti. He is the kind of man who seems to own the air around him. The light catches the dark handprints bruised into her pale throat. He does not scream. He barely moves. The camera moves closer as he whispers that someone has made a fatal mistake, and in this world, sometimes the only thing standing between a victim and one monster is another monster. Cut to a flashback, and all the glamour disappears. Now we see how she ended up on that floor. People trapped inside violent homes do not usually get clean. Cinematic escapes. They run when the door opens, even if they have no plan after that. Emily has lived for months by pretending she is fine. Long sleeves in brutal July heat to hide the bruises, smiles at parties, quiet answers. Tonight was not courage dressed up for the camera, it was instinct. Her bare feet slap against jagged, freezing concrete. She is numb, almost empty. But that numbness is not weakness. It is her body doing the only thing it can, keeping her moving. The camera follows her through the unforgiving shadows. It is not the blood on her skin that terrifies her most, or even the echo of Jason's voice in her ear. It is the silence inside her own head. Her body is shutting down piece by piece, saving what little strength is left. Still, she drags herself forward through the cold. Her mind can hold only one thought. If Jason catches her again, she will not survive it. She throws her weight against a massive oak door that refuses to move. There is nothing graceful about this moment. She is hurt, barefoot, half frozen and still pushing. Sometimes survival is that simple. One more step. One more door. The heavy door gives way, and she spills into the blinding light of a room so quiet it feels unreal. The cruelty of the shot is almost surgical. 47 perfectly dressed people stare at her broken body and do nothing. There is no warmth in their eyes, only shock, discomfort, and the kind of disgust people hide behind good manners. Emily snaps into a trauma response, eyes darting across the room for exits. The hunted always look for a way out, but her body has nothing left. She looks back at the door, and her trembling legs finally fail. She ran as far as she could. The awful part is that reaching safety does not mean your body knows the danger is over. There is no swelling music when she falls, only the flat, hollow sound of reality. Her body gives in, she drops hard to one knee, her palms striking the freezing marble, before she crumbles into the shadow of a corner booth. The restaurant noise disappears. The silence is so complete that we can hear her blood dripping onto the spotless white floor. Then one low, baritone word cuts through the room. Vincent speaks in the background. A huge bodyguard freezes mid-step. Pay attention to the framing. Vincent does not need to shout. When a dangerous man speaks softly and an entire room stops breathing, the room already knows who holds power. The sound shifts to the slow thud of Vincent Ent's leather shoes. He lowers his imposing frame into her line of sight. Emily keeps her chin buried against her chest. Her mind is still waiting for the fist she has been trained to expect when he speaks. There is no sweet, empty sympathy in his voice. It is calm, cold, controlled. He tells her to look up. She refuses, then he says her name, softly enough to pull her back into the room. At last she meets his eyes. His face looks carved out of old grief. He does not touch her. He waits. And for someone like Emily, that restraint is almost impossible to understand. The harsh light cuts sharp lines across his face. He has the empty stare of a man no one in this city can touch. Yet he is not looking at her like an inconvenience. He looks at her as if she is the only thing in the room that matters. Emily's bruised mind rejects the idea that any man could care without wanting something back, but his gaze holds her there. He quietly praises her for looking up, then orders the packed dining room to leave. A wealthy patron is foolish enough to object. Vincent does not raise his voice. He only repeats himself, no explanation, no negotiation, just a sentence, and the room obeys. The staging is tense and almost beautiful. The arrogant patron stumbles back, crushed by the weight of Vincent's calm command. Within a minute, 47 millionaires disappear. The wide shot leaves only the bleeding girl, the crime lord, and a silent guard at the door. Vincent asks her name. Her answer is barely a whisper, small and frightened, and shame moves across her face like a shadow. Vincent's expression does not change. She studies his dark eyes, waiting for the strike she has been conditioned to expect instead. He asks who did this to her. Emily shuts her aching eyes. Saying the truth out loud feels almost as dangerous as running. To say Jason's name would feel like inviting him into the room. If the word crosses her lips, the fragile wall holding her together may finally crack. The camera catches the painful tightening of her throat as panic takes over. Telling the truth feels fatal. Then Vincent breaks the pattern. He steps back and tells her she does not have to speak. She only has to breathe. The kindness hits her harder than anger would have. After months of calculated cruelty, a powerful man choosing not to corner her makes no sense. Trauma teaches you to question every gentle act. Emily is not comforted yet. She is only confused enough to keep breathing. Her eyes move frantically, trying to find the motive beneath his calm. Vincent says that bleeding on his expensive shoes is reason enough to interfere. For a man like him, this restaurant is his territory. But Emily's mind is screaming warnings. Desperate to know what part of her he plans to collect as payment. She searches his eyes for the tiny flicker men make before a lie. There is nothing. He is sealed shut. He says he only wants to hide her from whoever is hunting her. Her mind calls it a trap. Her body does not care. She is too weak to keep running. And morning suddenly feels very far away. There is nothing left in her body to burn. The adrenaline that carried her 8 blocks has vanished. She lets this towering syndicate boss lift her from the marble. This is the moment her fate turns. A dangerous man cradles her bleeding body. And she does not flinch. Then the light seems to dim. The air in the room turns cold. Her instincts feel the shift before she even turns her head. Jason Cole has walked through the entrance. The room tightens around him. That is how real nightmares move. They do not always arrive with noise. Sometimes they step through a doorway, and every nerve in your body remembers them. Every muscle in her body locks. A broken whimper tears from her bruised throat. It is pure terror, immediate and unfiltered. Vincent feels her turn to stone against him. The camera pans as his gaze shifts toward the entrance. There stands Jason, immaculate. Like a leading man arriving on a red carpet. Perfect hair, tailored suit. That polished charm only a true predator knows how to use. There is no blood on his manicured hands. Men like him learn that trick early. Keep yourself clean in public. And people will ignore what happens behind locked doors. Freeze the frame on Jason's eyes. When they lock onto Emily, there is no love there. Only the cold irritation of a man who believes something that belongs to him has slipped away. Then he changes masks flawlessly. In a heartbeat. He becomes the frantic husband, begging for an ambulance. Vincent steps forward like a wall of shadow and cuts the performance off. Watch Jason's face. His mind recalculates the power in the room. 1 second later, he offers a bright smile and reaches out a hand. That is what makes him frightening. Evil does not always look monstrous. Sometimes it knows exactly which face the room wants to see. Jason plays the desperate husband, using marriage like a receipt of ownership. The overhead lights buzz as he spins one lie after another. Trying to make Emily sound unstable, Vincent stands still, his eyes fixed on the bruises around her throat. Then comes the shift. The camera moves in as Vincent takes one measured step forward, no raised fist, no shouting. Just the pressure of a man who knows how to ruin lives without leaving fingerprints. Jason chokes on his own words. For the first time tonight, his charm has nowhere to land. Power does not need a scene when everyone in the room already understands the threat. Now look at Emily. Her eyes stay lowered, but she is counting the beats of the silence. She knows the rhythm of Jason's temper by heart. 1, 2, 3, she counts to 7. 7 seconds is all he can endure before the mask begins to split. On the 7th beat, the muscle in his jaw jumps. The polished facade cracks, and beneath it we see panic. Not guilt, panic. The panic of a predator realizing the room is no longer his. It is tragic that Emily learned to read him this well just to survive. But tonight, that knowledge gives her something back. She does not have to explain him, he is doing it himself. This is the frame where the illusion dies. Jason understands that his usual tricks have no value here. He fixes his empty eyes on Emily and spits out a weak threat, telling her this is not over. The light catches something new in her face. For the first time in a bitter year, she does not stare at the floor. She lifts her chin and looks straight through him. Her voice is steady as glass. I know, she whispers, but tonight it is. Jason goes blank. His mind cannot process her defiance. The room feels different now. Not safe, not yet, but for 1 second, he is the one who has to step back. Jason leaves, and the heavy oak door clicks shut behind him. In the emptiness that follows, Emily's shoulders collapse. It is as if a year of dread leaves her body in one ragged breath. Vincent breaks the silence gently and suggests a hospital. When she flinches, he changes course. His personal physician can come to the penthouse instead. You'll be safe tonight, he tells her. It is the move of a man used to controlling the board, offering the shape of choice, while arranging everything around it. Emily repeats the word safe, like she is testing a language she has not spoken in years. She wants to believe it. That is what scares her. The camera stays close on Emily's pale face, as she tries to understand what safety is supposed to feel like. Vincent's voice is velvet over steel. He tells her that just because she cannot see it does not mean it is absent. She studies his posture, searching for the hidden violence she has learned to read in men, but Vincent gives her nothing. His face is still, his mask smooth as ice. That calm scares her more than a raised fist. Is he a guardian, or just a devil in a better suit? Abuse breaks the inner compass. It makes peace feel suspicious and danger feel familiar. Stay with this image, because it is quietly devastating. Emily stands barefoot in a penthouse on the 43rd floor, swallowed by a velvet robe, staring down at the city lights as if she is not fully inside her own body. Carla sets down hot soup and fresh bread rolls near the dim lamp. The second Carla leaves the frame, Emily's trembling hand shoots out. She grabs the rolls and shoves them deep into the robe pockets. Her mind knows she is no longer in immediate danger. Her body still remembers hunger. The movement is automatic, raw and humiliating. Jason controlled everything, even food. Her hands have not caught up to freedom yet. Emily turns and freezes. Carla is standing in the doorway, watching quietly. There is no judgment in the older woman's eyes, only recognition. I used to do that too, Carla murmurs. Shame rises hot up Emily's neck. She stammers, trying to explain the padlocked cupboards. The little games Jason used to play when he wanted her desperate. Carla only steps closer, looks towards the city skyline, and tells her she can keep the food or leave it. Either choice belongs to her. It is such a small thing, but it lands hard. No lecture, no pity. Just permission to be a person with a choice. Carla's gaze steadies her as she tells Emily that surviving until nightfall is enough. Then the heavy oak door opens, and Vincent steps into the low light. Notice what he does. He stays against the far wall, keeping his body out of her space. He sets down coffee and asks for nothing. He says she needs 3 days of rest and offers his home as a fortress. Emily's instincts are sharp. She challenges him, asking if he only means she can stay as long as he wants her there. Vincent smiles faintly and promises she will never be a prisoner in his home. Emily does not believe promises anymore, but she hears the difference. Vincent swears his doors will open for her whenever she wants to leave. Emily studies him in the dim light, knowing that soft-spoken men can still demand the highest price. The twist is that Vincent does not pretend otherwise. He refuses to play the shining knight. He meets her exhausted stare and says plainly, "I'm not a good man. I do exactly what I want." It is arrogant, even chilling, but it slips past her panic because it does not pretend to be clean. He tells her to eat, sleep 8 hours, and judge him tomorrow. The corner of her mouth almost moves. Honesty does not make him safe. It makes him harder to dismiss. Exhaustion finally wins. Emily collapses into the huge bed and sleeps for 11 heavy, dreamless hours. It is the sleep of a hunted animal that has found a quiet cave. But at dawn, low male voices bleed through the door. The illusion of safety shatters instantly. Her eyes snap open, her breathing turns shallow. The camera moves to her white knuckles as her mind maps the room, measuring escape routes and anything heavy enough to use as a weapon. It is painful to watch. The room is warm, the bed is soft, but her body still wakes up expecting war. Now the curtain is pulled back. Emily moves silently across the cold floor and opens the door just a crack. Through the narrow slit, she sees Vincent and Marco bent over the blue glow of a laptop. They are scrolling through surveillance photos. Her heart stops. It is the exact kind of timeline she once tried to build against Jason. Vincent's jaw tightens with controlled fury. Then he asks how long his men have been following the husband. 7 weeks, Marco mutters. The words land like an anvil. She was never alone. And that should comfort her, but it does not yet. The camera pulls back as Emily stumbles away from the door. The cold in her spine does not come from winter. It comes from realizing her rescue may have started long before she reached that restaurant. Vincent had been hunting Jason for 2 months before she crossed his threshold. That unlocked door was not luck. It was part of a trap set by a mobster playing God with her life. The whole story turns under her feet. She escaped Jason, yes. But now she has to ask a harder question. Did she choose the door, or did Vincent place it in front of her? Harsh shadows move across Emily's trembling hands. In the dim kitchen light, we see the poison Jason left behind. She sits perfectly still, terrified that her mind is inventing ghosts again. For 16 months, her reality was taken apart piece by piece, until she could no longer tell instinct from paranoia. Then a soft knock breaks the silence in one quiet act of rebellion. Emily places the hidden dinner rolls back on the silver tray. She refuses the role of the starving captive. She stands and walks into the cold hallway to demand the truth from Vincent. The bruise on her throat will fade. The doubt in her own mind may take longer. The room turns heavy the moment she asks the question. How long have you known who I am? Vincent slowly lowers his porcelain cup to the saucer. In that suffocating pause, in that tiny space where truth has nowhere to hide, Emily studies the hard lines of his face. Jason trained her to drown in the terror of waiting. But this silence is different. She is choosing to stand inside it. Vincent does not move. Not one muscle betrays him. He holds her gaze with the calm of a man who fears no consequence. The power in the room is quiet. But Emily does not look away. 7 weeks, Vincent finally says. The words cut through the room. Hearing the truth out loud is its own kind of shock. A theory locked inside your head is still partly safe. Once spoken, it becomes something you have to carry. 7 weeks, she repeats, her voice steady and flat. You can see a hard, tragic pride straighten her spine. Then she pushes further. Was she the target? Or just collateral damage in his game? Vincent goes silent. It is the pause of a man deciding how much truth to give without softening it. Emily has had enough softened lies. She waits for the real answer. Vincent lays out the timeline with cold precision. He admits he knew Jason was keeping her trapped in that gilded cage. He knew about the psychological torture. Emily's eyes widen as the pieces lock into place. Her desperate escape feels suddenly like a scene he directed. Vincent corrects her in a low voice. The door was unlocked, yes. But she chose to walk through it. He only made sure it would open. It is twisted logic, but it has weight, even at her lowest. Some part of her still moved toward life. She hates that he is right. She hates even more that she is standing here because of it. The camera refuses to let Vincent look like a clean savior. His men were in the shadows the entire time, and his stillness is its own confession. Emily trembles with a mix of rage and relief. Here is the ugly truth. If those men had not been waiting in the dark, Jason might have dragged her back into hell. She is standing in this kitchen because someone violated the privacy of her life. Shaking, she demands to know why Vincent was watching her abuser. He only stares into his coffee. The silence says there is more to this story, and Emily, for once, refuses to be grateful before she understands the cost. The refrigerator hums low as Vincent explains how their worlds collided 6 months earlier. Another damaged woman tried to expose Jason, but expensive lawyers made her vanish. Somehow the file landed on Vincent's desk. He calls it professional curiosity about untouchable predators. Emily sees through that immediately. For the first time, a tiny crack appears in his armor, a twitch in the jaw of a man who hates being read. Then he gives her 2 words, my mother. He takes a sip of coffee and shuts the door again. It is not enough of an explanation. But it is enough to show that Jason's kind of cruelty is not abstract to him. He does not explode. He simply seals the subject away. Emily watches his posture and decides not to press. She is still fighting the old pull of captivity. Using the vigilance, she earned the hard way to map the room. She knows which shadows might hide a tripwire, so she draws her own line. She says she will stay, but not because he allows it. Her voice sharpens. She is staying because the walls are secure. That distinction matters. She is not choosing him. She is choosing a locked door, a working phone, food on the table, and one night where Jason cannot reach her. This is where the balance of power shifts. Desperate for air, Emily forces this dangerous man into a verbal agreement. If she stays, she will not be property. She will not be his tragic little project. Chin lifted, she claims the right to decide her own life. The kitchen falls into a heavy silence. We expect Vincent to do what powerful men do: deflect, manipulate, rise in anger, turn the moment back on her. Instead, he simply nods. The war she braced for never comes. Emily does not relax, but something in her face changes. She has drawn a line, and for the first time in a long time it holds. His immediate surrender visibly shakes her. You can see it in the small break of her breath, testing the water. She asks what he plans to do with Jason. Vincent, half lit by the window, turns the question back to her. The punishment, he says, is her choice. For 16 months, she survived by imagining Jason bleeding, begging, cornered. Those thoughts kept her alive on nights when nothing else did. Now a man with the power to make that happen is waiting for her answer, and suddenly revenge is not a fantasy anymore. It is a decision sitting between them on the kitchen table. Emily wanted Jason's blood when she was trapped in that apartment, but now, standing before a man who could erase him with one phone call, her compass spins. She wants Jason stripped of his weapons, neutralized, exposed, forced to live in the world he tried to bend around himself. But she refuses death. A faint twitch crosses Vincent's brow. suggesting he may never have intended to kill him in the first place. Watching Emily choose restraint is not soft or pretty. It costs her. She has every reason to want him gone forever. And still she chooses a punishment that leaves her hands clean. The camera moves in as Vincent offers another kind of punishment. Jason will be destroyed socially, professionally, and legally. Every door will close. Every favor will vanish. Isolation will follow him like rot. Emily searches Vincent's face, taking in the weight of it. Then the tension breaks. She nods. This is her first real decision in more than a year. She is no longer only the bleeding woman running through the night. In a tower, 43 floors above the city. She finally takes hold of a piece of her own story. Not the whole thing, not yet, but enough to feel her fingers around it. Now we see the damage in ordinary moments. Emily apologizes for everything, for asking for warmth, for taking up space, for opening a cabinet too loudly. Each apology comes with a bitten lip, a reflex she cannot yet stop. Then her hand brushes a glass and it shatters. Instantly, her body folds in on itself, bracing for the blow. Vincent does not lecture her about fear. He does not tell her she is safe. He only passes her a folded towel and goes back to his paper. No speech, no performance, just a towel. The simplicity of it almost breaks her more than anger would have. She clutches the soft linen, eyes wide as her mind misfires. Glass shines across the floor, yet there is no rage in the room, no shouting. No raised hand, just spilled water soaking into a quiet morning. For years her body learned to survive a madman's minefield. Now she stands with all her armor on, but there is no enemy. Vincent bends, picks up the largest shard, and sets it aside without looking at her like she is fragile. Emily watches him in silence. She does not know how to behave when nothing bad happens. Safety has arrived, but her body still suspects a trap. The scene opens in darkness, 4 a.m. Emily bolts upright, chest heaving, trapped in panic. The silence of the house frightens her most. Her nervous system has been trained so thoroughly by violence that quiet feels like the pause before impact. She slips into the dark kitchen, every muscle tight, ready for something to happen. Instead, moonlight catches Vincent, fully dressed, coffee mug in hand, looking like a man who gave up on sleep years ago. He sees her fear and asks no questions. He only slides a warm mug across the granite. For 20 minutes they sit in the dark, no speeches, no touching, just two people who cannot sleep. By day 4, a small spark returns. Emily asks for drawing supplies. Carla brings back sketch pads, graphite, measuring pencils, even a cheap metal ruler. The camera lingers on Emily staring at the blank white page, before Jason locked her inside his psychological cage. She designed beautiful architectural spaces. That part of her had been buried because survival demanded everything. Now she holds the pencil like it might hurt her. Her hand trembles. She draws one line, erases it, then draws it again. The blank page is not empty to her. It is a room she has to enter alone. The first pencil stroke is crooked. Her hand shakes, betrayed by a nervous system that has forgotten confidence. Still she keeps going. By noon, she is lost inside the work, tearing through 12 pages of detailed designs. The camera moves over stairwells, hidden doors, windows that catch light from impossible angles. She is so focused, she does not hear Vincent's heavy steps. He stands still, studying the drawings. Before she can panic and apologize, his voice cuts through the airs. Just that, the word stops her fear before it can rise. He is not praising her pain. He is looking at the work. For Emily, that difference matters. There is something strange and revealing in this scene. Emily is breathing like an artist again. Vincent studies her sketches and remarks that he hates wasted space. The irony is sharp. This is a man who owns 3 empty floors just to prove he can. Emily calls him out, pointing to the loneliness of it. Watch his face. For the briefest second, the mob boss flinches, and the hollow man beneath the armor shows through. Then he looks at her and admits she is right. No elegant lie, no punishment for noticing too much. Jason lied about everything, even the weather. Vincent gives her a truth so blunt it leaves her silent. The fragile peace breaks when Marco kicks the door open. The light seems to dim as he announces that Jason is mobilizing the police. The air turns cold. Emily's chest tightens, her body folding inward because it knows the monster is hunting again. Marco warns them Jason will not stop looking for her. Vincent does not panic. He does not raise his voice. He goes perfectly still. It is not peace. It is calculation. His mind is already moving ahead, finding pressure points, building traps, closing exits. Emily watches him and realizes that Vincent's violence does not flare, it organizes itself. Emily's voice cuts through the tension. She demands to know what lie Jason is feeding the authorities. Marco looks down, already hating what he has to say. Jason is pretending to be the concerned partner. He told the police she is unstable, off her medication, and in need of a welfare check. Silence swallows the room. Emily's skin goes cold. It is the same strategy he used before, turning the law into a chain to drag her back. But she does not scream. She does not cry. Her voice goes flat as she analyzes the move. The tears are somewhere inside her. But right now there is work to do. Even Emily seems startled by her own stillness. She looks at Vincent and explains the machinery of the trap. 14 months ago, she tried to run. Jason called the police, produced forged medical records from a doctor he had bought, and painted her as delusional. The responding officer believed his charm within minutes, erasing her reality with a pen stroke. She tells Vincent that yes, the torture left her with severe anxiety, but she is not crazy. Jason built a fortress of paper lies so that if she ever screamed, the world would look away. Now she is saying it without begging anyone to believe her. The room stays silent for what feels like a long time. Then Vincent moves. He orders Marco to find a top psychiatrist and have Emily evaluated immediately. He is going to build a paper trail strong enough to burn Jason's fake file to ash. His voice is cold and controlled, but look at Emily. Her hands are shaking. After years of manipulation, having this frightening man fight for her truth feels like stepping blind into another trap. Her brain cannot accept help without searching for the catch. She wants protection. She also wants proof that protection will not turn into ownership. Vincent watches her and says softly that ignored problems always come back to draw blood. Then Emily does something remarkable. She draws a line so clear it changes the room, shoulders squared. She looks him in the eye and tells him that if he ever uses this evaluation against her, she will walk out, no matter what is waiting outside. Vincent does not defend himself. He nods, accepts the boundary, and says he believes every word she says, at exactly 2 o'clock. The psychiatrist enters with a leather briefcase that feels almost like a weapon. Emily takes one breath and walks toward the chair herself. For 2 difficult hours, the doctor sits with Emily and asks hard questions. He does not search for an excuse to lock her away. He gives her space to speak later. Emily waits in the next room while the doctor gives Vincent his conclusion. He is firm. She is sane. Her memory is sharp. Her panic is a normal human response to prolonged psychological abuse in a few sentences. He tears Jason's fake medical file apart and confirms that it was built to keep her on a leash. Emily hears the words through the door. She presses both hands over her mouth. For once, an official record tells the truth. The tension climbs to its limit. Vincent demands proof that will survive a fight. The doctor asks for 72 hours to build the case. Vincent cuts him down to 48. Meanwhile, Emily backs away from the door, pressing her shaking hands into her legs to stop the room from tilting. The panic makes sense. She has lived inside a nightmare for so long that someone aggressively defending her feels like too much for her system to handle. Her brain does not know what to do with safety. Then fate delivers one more slap. Her supposedly untraceable phone vibrates on the glass table. The sound cracks through the room. This is the moment the real villain reaches through the walls. The screen shows an unknown number, but Emily's body already knows who it is. Her heart spikes, her breath catches. Against every survival instinct, she answers. Jason uses that calm, chilling voice. He asks for 60 seconds. A neat little trick meant to make her feel in control while he invades her sanctuary. He offers a hollow apology, then turns the blade toward Vincent. He plants the thought carefully, whispering that she has only traded a bad boyfriend for a mobster. It is precise, and that is why it hurts. Jason still knows where to press. Jason lets the silence stretch through the phone, hoping the pressure will break her. He paints Vincent as a killer while ignoring the quieter cruelty of what he has done. But Emily changes. She sits in the dim light, shadows across her pale face, and calmly takes him apart. She gives him the math. 400 times in 16 months, he made her feel insane. If she believed his warning now, she would have to trust her own judgment, the very judgment he spent over a year trying to destroy. The trap closes on him. For the first time, he has no easy answer. She drops the phone. Click. Dead air. The camera stays on her trembling hands. Emily has never turned the script back on him before. She never had the strength. But in that suffocating quiet, it is almost possible to hear something inside her reconnect. Her body is shaking with terror, knuckles white from the surge. Yet her voice on the call was solid. She is not suddenly healed. She is still trembling. But she has found a knife inside the fear, and she has used it. The phone buzzes again. This time, she does not pick it up. Just as she absorbs the terrifying clarity of her own mind, the wooden door opens. Vincent steps in. The dim light catches the hard angles of his face as he reads the damage. He does not offer a comforting embrace. Instead, he dissects Jason's call like a rival predator studying a trail of blood. He calls it manipulation, designed to keep her looking over her shoulder. But watch his body language. He stays across the room, leaving the space open so she does not feel trapped when she whispers. Asking if she is really safe, the question hangs between them. She is not only asking about Jason, she is asking about Vincent too. The room has that breathless calm that comes before a storm. Vincent leans against the wall and tells her she is secure for now. But his eyes say he knows better. A control freak who loses his prize does not simply accept it. He escalates. Vincent lays out the legal snare they will build around Jason. Then the light shifts as he drops his own mask. He tells her exactly who he is in the underworld, almost daring her to run. He studies her face, waiting for fear that never arrives. Emily has already lived with a monster who wore a smile indoors. Vincent's darkness is frightening, but at least it is not pretending to be daylight. Emily is finished playing the helpless girl in someone else's story. The camera tightens on her face as she refuses rumors and demands the truth. She is pulling the wheel back into her own hands. Vincent, a man who chooses words like he is holding a match over gasoline, respects the line. He gives her the ugly truth of his life and leaves the choice with her. Now she has to do the cruelest kind of arithmetic. Is trusting one dangerous man worth it if he helps her survive the man who broke her mind? Escape should be clean. Hers is not. The only door open to her is standing in the dark. After Vincent tells her the blood-stained truth, the room seems to swallow sound. Emily exhales with the exhaustion of someone who has been fighting in the dark for too long. She looks him in the eye and says she is staying. Then she asks what damage is coming. Vincent offers no comfort, he gives her the facts. They have 48 hours of danger before the threat breaks. 48 hours. He promises to stay anchored beside her until the clock runs out. In that moment, the violent shaking in her fingers stops, not because she trusts him completely, because the truth, even ugly, gives her something solid to stand on. 48 hours begin in fragments. Emily sketches until her wrist aches. She eats a full meal and waits for shame that does not come. She answers the psychiatrist's follow-up call without looking at Vincent for permission still. Her eyes keep moving toward the doors. A slammed cabinet makes her shoulders jump. Footsteps in the hall make her stop breathing. She is not falling apart. She is learning which alarms belong to the present, and which ones were installed by Jason. Leaving the apartment was only the first battle. Convincing her body she is out will take longer. Vincent runs the penthouse like a bunker. He takes calls in low voices behind closed doors. Marco moves through the halls with lethal updates. Then Diane Chen arrives, an attorney with the calm, ruthless air of a corporate assassin. Emily listens to the muffled sounds of their war room. They are gathering financial records, preparing a civil strike, and digging up the women Jason hurt before her. The twist is almost too perfect. The doctor who forged her decline lost his license 3 years ago. Jason assumed no one would dig. Diane drops the file on the table and says, "Arrogance always leaves paperwork." By afternoon, the dam breaks. Diane steps out and locks eyes with Emily, measuring her resolve. She warns her plainly. This legal attack will send Jason into a rage. Emily does not tremble. She says the rage is always there. Jason only dresses it in a nice suit when people are watching. Diane pauses, recognizes the truth of that, and nods before leaving. Then Vincent appears in the doorway. His broad shoulders heavy, he looks exhausted, not from violence but from the cost of the choices ahead. Emily notices it before he can hide it. Protecting her is not clean work, none of this is clean. Vincent meets her eyes and the story moves toward its next collision. The trap is set. Emily lets her pencil rest on the paper. They have deployed everything: lawsuits, evidence, the destruction of Jason's polished image. The fraudulent doctor is exposed. Dirty cops are facing the district attorney. Vincent sits across from her, his face cut by shadow, and gives her the countdown. In exactly 60 minutes, Jason's legal team will open the files in 1 hour. The man who built her suffering will realize the girl he tried to break has helped build the cage around him. The thought does not make her smile, but it steadies her. Emily asks Vincent to describe what is coming for her. He breaks down Jason's playbook in a steady voice. First, isolate her. Second, turn her fear into evidence. Third, attack anyone who believes her. Her shoulders tense, but Vincent cuts the panic off. The perimeter is locked. Diane has filings ready. Marco has eyes on Jason's building when she asks softly if Vincent is safe. A dark smile touches his mouth. He has dealt with worse things than Jason. Emily wants to believe that. More importantly, She sees that Vincent does believe it, and right now, borrowed confidence is still better than fear. The framing tightens as Vincent explains the mechanics of Jason control. Jason's sharpest weapon was never his fists. It was the slow erasure of reality. The goal was to make her feel unhinged, to rot her trust in herself from the inside. Vincent, built around cold violence, is immune to that kind of trick. Emily sits in the heavy silence and pieces it together. That invisible conditioning held her frozen for 16 months. Vincent gives her no pity, only clean facts. Breaking a person's mind was not something Jason did by accident. It was work, and if he built it, then maybe it can be dismantled. Vincent refuses to let her minimize what she survived. He reminds her that within days of escaping, she used Jason's own logic against him. Emily goes still, gripping a yellow pencil until her knuckles turn white. Then she asks about the other victims. Vincent lets the silence stretch. The first woman, he says, had to change her identity after Jason destroyed her physically 2 years ago. Another pause. The second woman did not survive. Emily squeezes the pencil until it snaps in her hand. How long have you known? She asks. 4 weeks, he says softly. The room changes. Jason is no longer only her nightmare. He is a pattern. She studies him, pulling at his motives like loose threads. She realizes he would have used this evidence against Jason, even if she had never appeared. Oddly, knowing she is not the center of his universe brings relief. Vincent leans closer and explains that her suffering made the fight personal, but not invented. She searches his eyes like a hostage, looking for the trap, and finds no lie. She accepts it. Then Marco pushes the door open. Jason and its lawyers have moved. Marco looks at Vincent, silently weighing how much to reveal. Emily catches the look immediately. She is tired of being protected from facts that belong to her. Emily cuts through the silent exchange and demands the truth. Vincent gives Marco a grim nod, and Marco drops the news. Jason is weaponizing the mental health system. He is claiming a psychiatric emergency, saying Emily is a danger to herself. And he has bought a corrupt judge to push it through. The room goes airless. Emily presses 2 fingers to her wrist, expecting panic. But her pulse stays steady. She names the tactic for what it is, the coward's last move. Lock the victim in a psych ward so no one believes her story. Jason is not trying to win the truth. He is trying to control who gets to speak it. Marco paces, feeling the trap tighten, but Vincent crushes the panic with logic. They have a clean psychiatric evaluation from 2 days ago. Add her testimony, and Jason's claim collapses. No judge will risk a career on such a weak hand, but Emily, framed in the hard light from the window, understands the truth. Jason knows the hold will fail. He does not care. The real weapon is terror. He wants the next 24 hours to be so frightening that her spirit breaks before the law can protect her. She asks Vincent if the police can force their way in with forged papers. Her voice is quiet, her eyes are not. Diane answers from the doorway, slipping into the room like a ghost. Her calm arrival makes the men's panic look almost clumsy. She is ready. She has filed the opposition, put a medical expert on standby, and flagged the dirty judge. Then the focus shifts to Emily. Diane confirms the police will likely arrive before sunrise. She gives Emily the survival plan. She must go to the door and project absolute emotional control. She must swallow the panic and use a forward shield. This is not fair. And everyone in the room knows it. But fair has nothing to do with survival tonight. Emily asks for the words. Diane gives them to her. I am perfectly fine. 4 small words designed to destroy Jason's story of a hysterical prisoner. If Emily says them while holding eye contact with the police, the fake crisis loses force. But Emily asks the worst question. What if they drag her out anyway? Diane's mask cracks just enough to show anger. She promises they will get her back fast. Emily looks to Vincent. He stays silent in the shadows, but his posture says he will destroy anyone who touches her. Still, he does not speak for her. That matters more than his threat. Emily gives one nod. Okay, then we wait. The tension ticks through the room. At 7:43, the lobby calls. 2 police officers are downstairs for a welfare check. Marco looks at Vincent. Vincent looks only at Emily and asks if she is ready. She stands in simple clothes, fragile and visibly wounded, but as she walks to the heavy door, she reaches for the brass handle and opens it herself before Marco can move. The camera holds on her hand. It shakes once, then steadies, behind her. The entire penthouse goes still. She is not waiting to be rescued from this moment. The officers at the door are younger than expected. The lead officer wears a skeptical frown, clearly prepared for the unstable scene described in Jason's report. The second stays neutral. The first asks for Emily, and she meets his eyes without flinching. He explains they received a report about her safety, and need to confirm she is there voluntarily. Emily gives him the line. I am perfectly fine. 4 measured words. She is not overacting. She is not begging. She is simply standing there, pale and bruised, refusing to play the role Jason wrote for her. The officer studies her face, glances across the apartment, then looks back into her eyes. He asks if she is there voluntarily. She says yes. He asks if anyone is making her feel unsafe. She says no. Then he lets 3 full seconds of silence hang between them. A tactic meant to make a person rush, stumble, and reveal fear. Emily does not blink. She knows the danger. She knows the stakes. And she opened the door anyway. The second officer lowers his notepad. The lead officer's suspicion fades into discomfort. They thank her and leave. Jason expected panic. What he got was control. This is where the trauma bond cracks. The officers leave and Emily gently pushes the door shut, for 10 long seconds. She rests her forehead against the cool wood. Notice Vincent. He does not crowd her. From the shadows, he says, that was you. He gives no credit to the paperwork or the lawyers. She tries to dismiss it, but he will not let her. Those files would not have saved her if she had opened the door shaking. She opened it like someone who remembered who she was. Emily sinks onto the couch exhausted but not defeated. For the first time, Jason's plan failed because of her. The tension shifts. Emily collapses on the couch, drained from the adrenaline. Vincent tells her she did beautifully. Then Marco's phone vibrates hard against the glass table. The room seems to darken as he reads the screen. His face gives it away. Something major has happened. He looks up and delivers it. Jason S. lawyer has pulled the psychiatric hold application. It is gone from the board. Then comes the hook. Jason is demanding a face-to-face meeting tomorrow. The predator knows one trap has failed, so he is building another in plain sight. Emily closes her eyes. She is tired, but this time she is not surprised. The air feels thick. Jason wants a neutral place to talk, which is almost funny. Men like him do not believe in neutral ground. Emily says it immediately. Jason is afraid. The tragic part is that she only knows this because he spent 16 months training her to read his twisted mind. Men like Jason do not back down. They move the goalposts. If he is tearing up his own legal plan, something is about to explode in his face. Vincent and Marco understand at once. The corrupt doctor. A state medical board investigation leaves a paper trail even a narcissist cannot burn. Jason's perfect paperwork has started turning against him. The light cuts harshly across Emily as she sits still and absorbs it. Diane leans against the doorframe, casting a long shadow. Forging medical files was not just a dirty trick, it was a felony. Jason's expensive attorney has realized their paid doctor is trapped. And a corrupt man's loyalty rarely survives the threat of prison. He will talk to save himself. Emily barely breathes. 18 months of invented madness press down on her chest. Jason built her psychiatric cage out of official paper and poisonous lies. Now that paper is catching fire, slowly, legally, and in a way he cannot charm his way out of. The camera pushes in on Vincent, his face marked by the dim office light. Jason's arrogance is almost blinding. He truly believed his fortress of paper could not fall. When Emily asks what Jason could possibly want, Vincent explains the logic of a cornered animal. Jason wants to buy his way out. He will trade his fraudulent lawsuit for her silence. Then Vincent changes the room by asking if she even wants to go. He places the choice in her hands and waits. The flicker in her eyes says she understands. No one is ordering her into that boardroom. If she enters, it will be because she decides to. The clock fills the silence. Emily gives herself 60 seconds to let fear move through her. She lifts her eyes and says she wants the meeting. Marco steps forward, ready to be the shield, but she stops him with one look. She repeats what she wants. The victim's tremor is gone from her voice. In its place is the flat, unyielding tone of a woman claiming her ground. Then she asks for every file before the meeting. Diane pauses, then hands her the folder. Emily opens it herself. No one is coming to live this part for her. She has to walk into the room knowing exactly what she is carrying. Vincent watches her without blinking as the broken parts of her mind lock into something harder. He brushes past Marco's protests and sets the meeting for 11 at the Lexington office. The strategy is clear. You do not fight a monster in his own maze. You pull him into the light of your arena. Emily nods, fingers closing around her charcoal pad. For days, she has drawn rooms to survive the pain. Now the camera follows her hand as she turns to a blank page and begins sketching the walls around the coming fight. This time, the room is not a hiding place, it is a battlefield. The scratch of charcoal fills the room as Emily draws the space around her. She captures every hard angle. Even the worn leather chair where Vincent broods over his coffee. Carla enters and looks over her shoulder, softly. She says the room looks beautiful on paper, almost like a home. Emily stares down and realizes what she has done. In her drawing, she has filled the sterile fortress with impossible sunlight. Her wounded mind has hunted down every shadow and forced light into it. The revelation is quiet and emotional. She is not just drawing walls anymore. She is deciding where the windows go. The camera moves close. This is the moment Emily begins to reclaim the part of her that Jason tried to bury. She looks at Carla and whispers that tomorrow she faces the man who crushed her. She needs to know she will not shatter again. Her voice does not shake. Carla sits beside her with the reverence only one survivor can offer another. She reminds Emily of what she did with the police. Emily says that was different because she knew what was behind the door. Carla smiles sadly. Knowing the beast is waiting does not make the door easier to open. It only makes opening it mean more. Carla holds her gaze and promises that a woman anchored in truth will not collapse in a boardroom. Emily looks down at her sketch as the meaning settles into her nerves. She remembers the forged files, the police at the door, and the folder now waiting on the kitchen table. Tomorrow, Jason will walk in full of polished venom, expecting her to fall apart. He still thinks he owns the map of her mind, but the irony is already waiting for him. His illusion is about to break in front of witnesses. Not in a fantasy, not in a dream, in a room with lawyers, documents, signatures, and consequences. The most powerful frame in a tragedy is often the one where the hunted stops running. The lens focuses on Emily S. hand as she widens the window in her drawing, forcing sunlight across the page in 2 days. Something inside her has begun to come apart and reassemble itself. Jason Cole will face her tomorrow, but the truth has shifted. She now holds the keys to the psychological cage. Night brings no sleep, yet her eyes show no panic. She moves through the strange space between numbness and freedom. The obedient ghost she used to be is gone. What remains is wounded, but awake. The bedroom lies in shadow. Emily stays awake, dissecting Jason's mind like evidence on a table. Memory moves across the scene first. The glossy public mask, the perfect lover everyone admired. Then the cold, shark-eyed emptiness that appeared the moment the front door closed. For the first time, she allows herself to feel the full fear of that stare. She realizes that swallowing the terror was part of what kept her chained. The performance is over. Dawn arrives in pale light. She dresses in her chosen armor, dark trousers, a white shirt, a sharp blazer. It is not confidence yet, it is structure, and today, structure is enough. In the bathroom mirror, Emily meets a ghost. Looking at herself feels like stepping into a boarded-up ruin. The camera does not hide the damage. She is dangerously thin, her eyes hollow from long nights and bad dreams. She is still caught on the wire between captivity and freedom. But the spark in her eyes belongs to her now. She walks into the kitchen, where Vincent waits. His gaze moves over her with the precision of a battlefield tactician, checking the seams of her emotional armor before the fight. He does not tell her she looks beautiful. He tells her she looks ready. That is the compliment she can survive. This is a standoff where the weapons are psychological. Vincent asks how she is holding up. Emily does not flinch. She is terrified, and she is ready. Vincent outlines the plan. Diane will control the boardroom. Marco will guard the corridor. Jason gets no time alone with her. Then Vincent tells her the real danger. The negotiation is only theater. Jason is coming to do what he does best. Take apart her sanity with surgical patience. Emily listens without blinking. She knows the knife because she has lived with it today. She intends to watch him cut himself on it. To understand a predator like Jason, you have to understand his sharpest blade, rewriting reality. Vincent warns that Jason will try to fracture her one last time. Emily only nods. She spent the night building a fortress inside herself. Anticipating every line of his script, he will call her hysterical. He will paint her protectors as demons. It is his final card. The irony is sharp. As she holds her coffee, her hands are steady. Today she will let him empty every poisoned argument before she brings the blade down. Jason believes he is walking into a negotiation. Emily knows he is walking into evidence. When she asks if her silence will be a problem, Vincent lets his eyes answer. A quiet understanding settles between them. Morning light falls across his shoulders as he stands there asking for nothing. He does not puff himself up. He does not fill the silence with pride. He simply holds the room steady, after a man who demanded ownership of her very heartbeat. The presence of someone who does not ask for a piece of her feels almost impossible. Emily does not lean into him. She picks up the folder instead. For now, that is enough. The camera cuts to the 14th floor of a cold Lexington Avenue high-rise. Glass and steel are supposed to signal neutral territory. But every inch of the room has been chosen with intent. In power games, the room is the first weapon. Of course, Jason is already sitting at the head of the long oak table. Arriving early is part of his script. It lets him poison the air before she enters. Emily knows this staging. She saw him direct the same play at dinner parties and in empty boardrooms. The lighting, the distance, the chairs, all arranged to pull her under. But this time she notices the trick before it works. Look at the small tremor in her hand near the door. 16 months of psychological warfare turned her nervous system into a row of tripwires. Adrenaline hits instantly, her own biology begging her to shrink and survive. The body remembers the knife long after the wound has closed. But she forces her heel down onto the carpet. She walks in for one perfect fraction of a second. Jason's face breaks. He expected the shattered doll he had worked so hard to make. Instead, he sees the clean lines of her blazer and the iron in her eyes. The victim he prepared for is not the woman who arrived. It takes Jason 2 seconds to put his mask back on. The curtain drops, and his voice turns sweet. He plays the concerned lover, sighing about how relieved he is that she is safe. Emily sits at the center of the frame and gives him nothing. Then his attorney, Price, leans forward, wrapped in an expensive suit and flexible morals. He clears his throat to offer a polite fiction, but Diane cuts him off at the knees. She drags the room back to the paper trail. Jason's smile stays in place, but his eyes change for the first time. He realizes this room is not built for his performance. Diane drops the evidence onto the table with almost casual precision: sworn testimony, a paper trail. A corrupt doctor now turning on Jason for the state. Then she slides over the licensing record, the bank transfers, and a copy of the emergency hold Jason tried to force through before his lawyer killed it. Price's face drains of color before he can hide it. Across the table, Jason's perfect smile twitches. The gravity of the room changes. Logic is gone, so he reaches for emotion. He lowers his voice into something broken and intimate, trying to pull Emily back into a private world where only his version of truth exists. Emily cuts straight through the performance. She looks him in the eye and tells him the script is dead. Jason freezes, then reaches for the worst betrayal. With beautifully arranged sorrow, he tells her that her mind is breaking, that illness has poisoned her memories. Emily does not flinch, calmly, almost coldly. She tells him the medical board has already opened the forged records. Then Diane places one more folder on the table: photographs, timestamps, and the signed statement from the doctor who took Jason's money. Jason's fingers tighten on the edge of the table. Everyone sees it. The mask is slipping in public. The bitter irony is almost hard to swallow. Jason dares to use the word love as a shield, trying to frame his torture as protection. Then Emily says his name. There is no fear in it now, only a hollow finality. It stops him. She tells him to shut up and listen for the first time. The architect of this nightmare looks lost. His kingdom of lies is turning to ash. Emily takes back her reality piece by piece, reminding him that before he poisoned it, her mind was sound. Price tries to interrupt. Diane shuts him down with one sentence and slides a phone across the table. On the screen, a detective is waiting downstairs. The camera moves in on the reversal. For more than a year, Jason studied her weaknesses so he could break her, but look at her now. She cuts the trauma bond without dropping her gaze. She dismisses his lawyer with a small, indifferent wave. Then she tells Jason this is not revenge, and that is the wound he cannot absorb. It means he is no longer worth even her hatred. He is becoming smaller in front of her. Not harmless, not forgiven, but smaller, through the glass wall. The two plainclothes officers step into the corridor. Jason sees them. Emily sees him see them, and the room goes silent. Emily draws the boundary clearly beside her. Vincent's shoulders stiffen almost imperceptibly, without looking at him. She reminds her protector that her life belongs to her now, across the table. Jason searches frantically for the fragile girl he used to shape like clay. She is gone. The well he used to drink from has dried up. His god complex begins to break in front of the camera. Defeated, he finally asks what she wants. Her breath does not shake as she gives him the sentence. A signed agreement, lifetime silence, every fabricated file destroyed. Full cooperation with the district attorney. No loopholes, no contact, no second door. She promises public ruin if he breaks the terms. Not a whisper campaign, not a private warning. A press conference, the medical board file, the forged records, the bank transfers, and the names of the officers who helped him. For someone who lives by reputation, the threat of daylight is worse than blood. The silence that follows is thick enough to choke on. His lawyer sweats through his silk collar, whispering reality into Jason's ear. Then Diane adds one last piece if he refuses to sign. The detective outside gets the full packet in 5 minutes. Jason's jaw tightens so hard it looks painful. His victim has locked the cage, and he can hear the key turning. With one last pathetic swing, Jason leans across the mahogany and plants a final poison seed. He whispers that Vincent is just another monster waiting for his turn. It is a desperate attempt to drag her back into fear and isolation. But Emily is no longer standing in his dark. She has spent too many nights taking apart her own terror, with calm precision. She tells him her choices belong to her, and Vincent is only a witness. Then she looks at Vincent and says the same thing without softening it. You do not get to choose for me either. Vincent gives one slow nod. Jason's mouth opens, but the old words no longer fit inside her mind. Pause on Jason's face. We expect the monster to explode, to give the story the screaming climax his damage seems to demand. Instead, we see emptiness. A machine unplugged. Emily spent months imagining a huge moment that would break the trauma bond. But healing rarely arrives with thunder. Sometimes it sounds like cheap ink scratching across a legal pad. Jason signs the agreement with a hand that will not quite stay steady. Diane watches every stroke. Price looks sick. Outside the glass, the detective checks his watch. Emily does not look away. 45 seconds put a legal end to years of psychological hell. It is quiet, but it is real. The camera stays on Jason as he tries to rebuild himself in real time. He squares his shoulders, desperate to look like a king choosing to leave his throne. Then his phone lights up on the table. One of his board members is calling, then another. Then another. Diana's first filing has already hit the system. His perfect world is receiving the news before he can control it. The lens shifts to Emily. Something inside her has begun to protect itself again when the heavy door shuts behind him. The pressure in the room lifts. Through the glass, the officers turn and follow Jason toward the elevators. He is still dangerous, but he is no longer enormous. The frame widens. Diane sits with a faint clinical smile, knowing she has just witnessed survival in its purest form. But Emily does not celebrate. The camera holds on her exhausted body as she stares at the polished table, hands perfectly still, trying to read her own pulse. There is no rush of triumph, no sudden joy, only a vast emptiness, and somehow it is a good one. The roots of the trauma bond have been torn out of her chest. Her mind feels like a hollow mansion after a storm has passed. She can hear her own breathing without his shadow over it. Victory for her is not happiness yet. It is silence without him in it. The room clears until only Emily and Vincent remain in the gray light. The atmosphere shifts from war to a delicate negotiation. Emily studies him, guarded and sharp. Here is the irony. Unlike the narcissist who just walked out, Vincent does not flinch at her boundaries. He does not take offense. He stands still and listens. Emily grounds herself in the plain facts. He gave her shelter, nothing more, not a grand romance. Not a rescue she can disappear into. She knows that falling into his arms now would risk trading one chain for another. The fight with Jason may be over for today, but she is still responsible for her own freedom. Emily states her terms with trembling clarity. She needs a physical space with no hidden strings, a place where she can find the woman she used to be. The camera catches the slight drop in Vincent's shoulders. There is real ache in his eyes, but he does not use it against her. He lets himself stand there, exposed and quiet. After years of calculated mind games, that honesty is exactly what her bruised spirit needs. He shows her that letting her go hurts him, but her freedom matters more than his comfort. Seen by a man who treats her like a person instead of a possession, she makes the terrifying choice to leave. Her hands move through her belongings. She ignores the practical things and reaches for the worn edges of sketch pads and watercolors. They are not just supplies, they are pieces of the self Jason tried to erase. Vincent gives a slow nod, quietly affirming her right to exist on her own terms. Grief moves across Emily's face under the harsh fluorescent light. She turns to him and gives him the only closure she can. She names what he did: the lawyers, the late nights, the impossible escape. She is not leaving because he meant nothing. She is leaving because he helped put her back together well enough that she can choose what comes next. She has finally learned to breathe without someone else operating her lungs. The unknown is the only path left. Vincent understands. But his voice softens when he asks for her new address. Instantly, tension grips her shoulders. It is the survival reflex of a woman who has lived inside a cage. Vincent sees the fear and steps back. He does not want the address so he can possess her. He wants the comfort of knowing she is safe. Then he adds the part that changes everything. If she says no, he will accept no. Emily watches him wait for the answer instead of taking it. Her jaw loosens. This is what asking looks like. Emily imagines the sanctuary she is about to build, a place where every choice will finally be hers. because his respect has earned a small piece of trust. She writes down the address. Then she folds the paper once and holds it out herself. The camera follows her into the elevator as the reality settles in. She clutches her paints like a shield and understands this is not the finish line. It is the starting line. The glass doors open, and the noise of the city hits her like a blow. For 16 months, Jason shrank her universe to one bedroom. Now the world is huge, loud, and still turning without her. She draws a shaky breath and steps onto the concrete. Freedom is terrifying. She steps into it anyway. The story shifts here. For the first time since the darkness swallowed her, Emily looks at the world without seeing it only through trauma. The winter wind on her cheeks is not a symbol. It is just winter, cold and real. The camera follows her into a battered apartment in Queens, and to her it feels like a palace. Morning sun cuts through the window. The radiator clanks, the kitchen is cramped, but the walls belong to her. Even the crack in the plaster feels like a canvas waiting for a life. She touches the wall with 2 fingers and laughs once quietly, because no one is there to tell her she is too loud. Emily signs the lease on a bleak Tuesday afternoon, her hands steady on the desk. For a woman who just crawled out of a psychological grave, that steadiness matters. Her life fits into one bag: borrowed clothes, 2 sketch paint, and a coffee maker. Jason had worked to convince her she was forgotten by the world, but her patient advocate proved otherwise. There are still hands willing to catch someone who is falling. Emily does not romanticize it. The apartment is cold, the faucet leaks, the floor creaks, but every problem inside it is ordinary, and ordinary feels almost holy. For years she was a ghost in the reality Jason designed, in the dim light of her new kitchen. Emily plugs in the cheap coffee maker and freezes by the window. The camera holds on her trembling shoulders, for the first time in so long. She is not listening for angry footsteps. She is not bracing for shouting. The silence in the empty apartment is complete, deafening, and somehow beautiful. Then a news alert lights up her phone. Jason Cole under investigation for fraud and coercive control. Emily stares at the headline until the letters blur. Tears begin to fall. This is not a breakdown. It is her nervous system finally realizing nobody is coming through the door. The camera moves closer to the sketches. They are not doodles. They are blueprints of a woman taking her mind back. She draws a modest room she can afford, a map of a life where she holds the pen. That spark keeps her working until 2 in the morning. And for the first time in years, she sleeps without nightmares. Then comes the hard work with Dr. Okafor. The light shifts to a warm office. The therapist leaves a bowl of candy on the table, a small offering of safety without pressure. Emily talks for 40 minutes, calmly taking apart the psychological games that erased her. Saying it out loud does not fix everything, but it gives the damage a shape. Pause on Emily in that quiet office, explaining how Jason broke her reality into pieces. Her voice is almost too calm. Dr. Okafor takes notes, seeing the sharp mind beneath the trauma. Speaking the nightmare out loud does not make the memories vanish. It strips away some of their power. It proves the monster was not a shadow with endless reach, but a small methodical man who needed to destroy someone else to feel large. The unfair part is how much work it takes to rebuild from dust. Jason walked out of the boardroom in minutes. Emily will spend months teaching her body that he is gone. The camera follows Emily onto the subway, where flickering yellow lights wash over her face. Her body trembles hard, as if it might come apart. She hides her shaking hands in her coat so Carla will not fuss over her, because even love can feel like a cage when it crowds too close. Then there is Vincent. She studies every move he makes, wary as a wild animal around sudden quiet. He did not force her hand. He sat in the cold morning light and gave her the one thing she had not known in years, a choice. That is why he still frightens her, and why she still thinks about him. 3 painful weeks pass in a montage of quiet nights. When Emily finally dials Vincent, her thumb hovers over the screen. She uses Carla S. meddling as an excuse, holding her friend S. name up like a shield against rejection. Vincent understands the tension in her voice. He hears how close she is to snapping, so he lowers his tone and tells her an ordinary story about Marco dropping a ceramic coffee mug. He describes the harmless mess, proving he can stand in the middle of chaos without shouting, blaming or breaking anything. Emily listens to the details: the crack of the mug, the spilled coffee, the silence after. No punishment, just a mess cleaned up. Vincent casually says he notices things. The phrase is dangerous because Jason used words like that before violence began. But Vincent says it without poison. The silence on the phone stays light when Emily whispers that she is returning to architecture school. Jason's shadow seems to tighten around her spine. demanding she explain herself. She bites her lip and refuses. She does not justify the dream. Her refusal, another string breaks. Vincent only says September then. No lecture, no warning, no claim on her time. Emily stares at the wall, stunned by the absence of resistance. The camera moves in on her tired, beautiful face. She has said her dream without apologizing for taking up space. Vincent anchors the conversation to September, giving her 6 months of invisible breathing room, no pressure, no demand. Emily traces a crack in the plaster ceiling with her eyes, pulling herself back from a flashback. Then she does something brave. In a voice that barely shakes, she tells him she is broken. She refuses to wear a hollow smile for any man's comfort again. The scene is stripped clean of pretense. Vincent does not argue. He does not correct her. He simply says he can meet her where she is, or not at all. Vincent receives the rejection with quiet grace. Emily steps into the unknown and offers a compromise. Coffee and daylight on her terms. The call ends, and she stands motionless in the middle of her bedroom. The camera watches sunlight crawl across the scuffed floor as the hours pass. She is using the literal movement of light to convince her damaged brain that the past is gone and the present is real. Trauma can turn the mind into a cruel negotiator. Sometimes you need proof as simple as daylight on wood. Emily waits until the sun reaches her bare feet, then she moves. 6 quiet weeks pass before reality kicks the door open. Emily is alone with a simple lunch when the sharp ring of the phone breaks the silence. It is Diane speaking in a hollow, controlled voice. Jason, the architect of Emily's destruction, has been arrested in handcuffs in the middle of his perfect office. This time, it did not happen quietly. The lobby was full. His partners saw the cuffs. A reporter caught the whole thing from across the street. The sickening twist is that another woman in Chicago suffered the same fate. The camera pushes in as Emily turns to stone. Justice does not feel like triumph, it feels like proof. Diane slips into crisis mode, listing bail conditions, court dates, and the charges moving through the district attorney's office. But Emily cuts her off. She refuses to let the future rush in and swallow the moment, barefoot in the center of her empty apartment. She closes her eyes and lets her body absorb the fact that her abuser is in a cage. She imagines the office lobby, the handcuffs, the faces of the coworkers who once admired him. She imagines Jason realizing charm cannot unlock steel. Then another alert flashes on her phone. A second victim has come forward. Emily sits down slowly. The world is finally listening. What reaches her in that quiet room is not happiness. It is the feeling of gravity working again, a tiny shift of power sliding back into her hands. When she tells Carla, her friend breaks down, crying the tears Emily is still too numb to reach. But Emily makes one choice that matters. She does not call Vincent first. She keeps the victory close, needing to know it belongs to her before she shares it with anyone. Instead, she places a bag of good coffee beans on her kitchen shelf, a ticket to a life she is not ready to enter. Hope is fragile, so she sets it somewhere she can see it. August arrives like a long exhale. Emily walks the halls of Pratt with 16 hard weeks of therapy behind her, in Dr. Okafor's quiet office. She has been pulling Jason's influence out of her mind, like a deep-rooted weed, and the beautiful part is that it is working. The camera lingers on her small victories. She no longer flinches when a heavy door slams. She sleeps without night terrors. She eats when she is hungry and stops when she is full. Slowly, methodically, she is reclaiming her body from fear still. Progress is not a straight line. Some mornings her hands still shake before coffee. Pause on this scene. Emily carries a glass jar of coffee beans into therapy and holds it up like proof of her new fearless self. She believes she has outsmarted her own trauma. But Dr. Okafor does not clap right away. She smiles, then asks one careful question. Is the coffee a choice or a test Emily has built for herself? The room goes quiet. Emily lowers the jar to her lap for the first time. She does not rush to answer. That silence is progress too. Healing is not pretending fear is gone. It is noticing the places where fear has learned to dress itself up. Dr. Okafor's question follows Emily all the way to her gallery show. Her work is obsessed with the way a room can either suffocate a person or save them. 10 months after her life was crushed, friends gather in Lower Manhattan, drinking red wine and praising her talent. The light is warm. Carla is glowing with pride near the entrance. A small television above the bar runs a news segment about Jason's indictment. Nobody says his name to Emily. Nobody has to for once. The world outside the room is telling the truth too. She looks from the screen back to her work. The cage has become evidence. The evidence has become art. The camera circles Emily as she accepts praise from the gallery crowd. They are fascinated by her miniature room. For one brief, intoxicating second. Her eyes brighten with the feeling of being understood. But look at the piece on the wooden pedestal. She has designed a room where light breaks across the surfaces, creating warm pockets surrounded by cold, isolated shadows. It is heartbreaking because it is honest. She explains her vision to a wealthy gallery representative, saying that a safe room is not one without shadows. It is one where you know exactly where the shadows are. Then she turns, and the room changes. Vincent is standing there, no bodyguards, no dramatic cue. His dark wool coat hangs open in a posture that suggests vulnerability. Emily reads it carefully, because she has learned to read everything. He does not move toward her first. He lets the crowd shift between them, lets her decide whether to cross the space. She does slowly. He asks softly if the tiny room is how she sees the world. There is danger in him, yes. There always has been. But tonight he does not hide it, he also does not use it. Emily knows the difference now. And that is what makes the moment dangerous in a different way. The room is split between amber warmth and cold shadow. Vincent reflects her art back to her in words she wants to hear. Emily meets his eyes and says broken things can still belong somewhere, but they should never have to beg for space. Vincent listens. Then he tells her he has had her address for months but chose to stay away. She does not flinch. She says she knew. A faint smile touches his mouth. This time she does not give him credit for restraint he owed her anyway. She only nods, accepting the fact. He seems to understand. The old Emily would have thanked him for not taking more. This Emily does not. Emily looks at him and says she bought the good coffee 2 months ago. It has been sitting on her shelf. Vincent steps closer, but only to the edge of her space. He lets the silence stretch and asks how long good coffee lasts. She holds her ground, long enough. There are mob bosses who have negotiated territory with less tension. Vincent understands the weight of what she is offering. The coffee is not coffee. It is an invitation with rules attached. He asks if she is ready. Emily asks the room and says she is ready to try. Not to disappear into anyone. That correction is small. It is also everything. She lays out her rules, pacing like she controls the negotiation because this time she does. She tells him what she wants, what she will not tolerate, and how slowly this must go. She admits she is still afraid sometimes. Vincent does not perform softness. He only takes the rules seriously. He promises coffee in daylight, public places, no guards unless she asks, no questions she does not want to answer. Then Emily adds the rule that matters most. If she says stop, everything stops. Vincent does not hesitate, then it stops. Emily exhales. Not because she has tamed the beast, but because she has named the terms. Control is not trust, but it is a beginning. The gallery buzzes with voices, and her name is painted on the white wall, Emily Hartwell. The woman who once ran barefoot through freezing snow with no hope left now stands in a room she helped create. Victory does not feel clean, and maybe it never will. Jason is in handcuffs, his lies exposed, his polished world cracking under official light. Emily is not healed into someone untouched. She is scarred, cautious, awake from across the room. Vincent waits instead of reaching. Emily picks up her coffee beans from the display table and smiles. Just barely, she has stopped running. Not because the world is safe now. Because she finally knows she can choose where to stand.
Emily's story teaches a painful but important lesson. Abuse does not only leave bruises on the body. It also attacks the mind. Jason does not simply hurt Emily physically. He slowly convinces her that she cannot trust her own thoughts, memories, or emotions. He calls her unstable, confused, irrational, and broken until she begins to question what she knows is true. This is one of the most dangerous parts of emotional abuse. A victim may start by fearing the abuser, but over time, they may begin to fear their own judgment. Emily's world becomes smaller and smaller because Jason controls the story around her. He builds false records, uses professionals to support his eye, and presents himself as the caring fiancé while making her look unreliable. The powerful turning point comes when Emily finally says clearly, "I know what happened." That sentence may sound simple, but for someone who has been gaslighted for months, it is a declaration of freedom. She is no longer asking Jason to confirm her reality. She is naming it for herself. For viewers, this lesson is deeply educational. If someone repeatedly tells you that your pain is imaginary, that your memory is wrong, or that no one will believe you, that is not love. That is control. Love does not require you to doubt your own mind. Emily's healing begins when she trusts her own perception again. She still feels fear. She still shakes. But she learns that fear and clarity can exist together. The lesson is clear. Escaping abuse is not only about leaving a place. It is about reclaiming the right to believe yourself.